Good morning. Consultants with a conscience. When I say that, people smile. I can see you smiling. But I know a consultant with a conscience. Meet Adrien. This is Adrien White, a friend of mine who grew up in a small town in Louisiana, went off and got herself a great college education, and ended up as a consultant at Ashesi University in Africa. Ashesi is in the West African nation of Ghana, in the capital city of Accra. And actually, Ashesi University itself is an interesting story. Ashesi is a university with a vision, and that vision is academic excellence. It's providing very high quality education to African students, and that all by itself is really very unusual. They started in 2002, and by 6 years later, when Adrien worked for them, they had already established a reputation as one of the very best universities in all of Africa. But they had a problem when Adrien showed up. Their problem was that they still didn't have a student record system. It's kind of a technology thing, but every university needs a student record system, which is the computer system that keeps track of admitting students to the university, their course requirements, course registration, grades, and ultimately graduation requirements, so that the administrators know if a student has met all the requirements to graduate. So that sounds like something that every university should have, and it is. But 6 years into their operation, Ashesi, even with all the great work that they were doing, still didn't have a student record system. That's where Adrien came into the picture. Adrien, in just a short 10-week project, was able to assess the situation, release a request for proposals to software companies, analyze their responses, guide the university executives through the whole process of executing a contract with a software company. And by the time she completed her 10-week project, she had made all the arrangements for the new system to be installed and for all of the university employees to be trained on how to use the new system. Here's how Adrien tells that story.
Prior to my project, the faculty and staff managed student grades using a Microsoft Excel spreadsheet. And everyone was using this spreadsheet to put in grades and manage transcripts. On demand, a transcript would be generated, and it was a manual sort of thing. So with more growth anticipated in enrollment, they really saw the need to get another system to do those sort of tasks. So my project centered around finding another system, another software package that they could readily use that would be better than what they were currently using.
Now that's an impressive project when you consider that it was all done within a 10-week period. By the way, Adrien did have a consulting colleague that she worked with, but even with two of them, that's really a lot of work and a lot of accomplishment for just 10 weeks. It's really impressive, though, when you understand that when Adrien did this project, she was still a student. Adrien was a student when she did this project. Now, I've worked with Adrien and also with other students doing these kinds of projects. It's really quite an experience for me. As a university professor, I've had the chance to do lots of interesting projects, but for me, working with Adrien and other students like her is the peak. It really is a peak of my career. And this kind of experience has actually convinced me that these young professionals will change the world. They can and they will change the world. They are, in fact, consultants with a conscience. But let me tell you a little bit more about Adrien and her project. This is a photo that shows Adrien and her colleague, Catherine Dickens, working with one of the professors there at Ashesi University. They did lots of good work on their project, but they also had the whole experience of living and working in an African nation, which, believe me, is a unique experience. Learning the culture and just living there is really pretty unique. Also, in addition to that, for Adrien, she had the experience of visiting slaving prisons. There we go. Now, these slaving prisons have been preserved from past centuries when they were used to hold slaves in captivity before they were put on ships to be sent to the Americas. So as an African American herself, Adrien found this to be a very meaningful kind of experience. But beyond that, she also had the day-to-day experience of looking after her own accommodations, shopping for groceries and other essential needs. It's always a challenge in a place like Ghana and Africa because every shopping experience is a negotiation. If you've traveled a lot, I'm sure you've experienced this. And the asking price is never the price that's actually paid. There's back and forth, haggling and all that sort of thing. So one day, Adrien talked to me after she'd been in Ghana for about a week, and she said, "You know, I think I'd like to learn a little bit of the local tribal language. It's called Twi." I said, "Adrien, everyone speaks English here. English is the official language of Ghana because it was originally part of the British Empire. It was a British colony, so English is well entrenched in Ghana, but they also have local tribal languages, and the one near Accra, the capital, is called Twi." I said, "Why would you want to bother just being here for 10 weeks to learn Twi?" She said, "Well, I have to go shopping, and I'd like to pass myself off as a local. If I drop a few words of Twi into the conversation, they'll think I'm a local, and if they think I'm a local, I'll get better prices." And sure enough, it worked. She was able to really haggle, really play the game, and really stretch her budget to take advantage of that. Well, we have students like Adrien that work on projects all around the world. They work on problems of poverty and unclean water. Really, they're working to help to create livable communities in some very interesting ways. And you know, as we move into the future, we're going to need lots more like this. We're going to need people who are young, smart, talented, educated, and most important of all, motivated to do the kinds of projects that I've described. We're going to need a new kind of young professional, professionals who are well-trained, methodical, and competent, but who also want to do this kind of work. Now, not the Wall Street types, not people who want to go off and take their university degrees and make millions on Wall Street, but to do this kind of work, which is, in the big scheme of things, really far more important. In short, we're going to need consultants with a conscience. Let me tell you about another consultant with a conscience. This is Bridget Lewis from Seattle. Whoops. I'm going to back that up. Okay. So this is Bridget Lewis from Seattle, Washington. Bridget worked on a project in the south of Chile. She also had another consulting partner, but her project was a little different. In the south of Chile, they have some health and social service problems, and they have some agencies there that were working and doing a pretty good job to solve those problems. But once again, they had a problem with computers. They knew that they could be using computers to do a better job with their mission, but they didn't know exactly how to go about it. In other words, they didn't have the IT expertise that they needed. At the same time, there's a state university in the area, and that state university did have the expertise that was needed. So the university was interested in creating kind of a spin-off company, a nonprofit company that would provide consulting services to these nonprofit agencies. So Bridget and her partner were asked to write a business plan, to create a business plan for the creation of this new nonprofit consulting company. Here's how Bridget tells that story.
And we worked on this project for Don Eugenio, who's the director of their Centro Informático, which is the organization within the university that maintains the computers, updates the networks, keeps all the technology running for the university. And he had this idea that he wanted to start a IT consulting firm in the area so that they could take the technology experience and the knowledge that the Centro Informático had or other experts in the area, and they could disseminate that and raise the overall level of technology of the region. So Minji and I were there to do market research and to write a business plan for this proposed IT consulting firm.
Now, these consulting projects are interesting, and I really use the word consultant for a specific reason. The students who work on these projects are not interns. It's not an internship. They're not trainees. They're not temporary employees. Nothing like that. They actually go into these projects as full professionals. They're consultants. And as full professionals, as consultants, they are equals. They're peers to the executives that run the organizations that are their clients. This is a really important distinction because for the students who are students in the professions, engineering, management, computer science, and things like that, this is their first professional experience. So this is really a big deal to the students. In fact, in many cases, almost all cases, they come back to the university and they say, you know, that was the best part of my whole education. That was really, really important to me. Also, in a few cases, it turns out to be a life-changing experience, as it did for Bridget, where they actually decide to redirect their careers to do this kind of work for nonprofit organizations, health and social service agencies, and so on. But back to Bridget a little bit and her experience. Besides the work that she did on the job, she found herself in a world-class tourist destination. She was in the south of Chile, which you might know as Patagonia. The south of Chile and the southwest part of Argentina are called Patagonia, and they have some really outstanding outdoor recreational opportunities. So Bridget, for example, had the chance to hike to the top of an active volcano, to soak in the hot springs at the end of the hike. Lots of outdoor recreation opportunities like that. People from North America and Europe pay thousands of dollars to travel to Patagonia to do this kind of stuff. Bridget was just a 2-hour bus ride away, maybe a $20 bus ticket, and she was there. So that was a real fringe benefit for her. But in addition to that, there were also, the other side of the coin was the stresses and strains that were involved in doing this kind of work. In Chile, in the south of Chile, Bridget had to conduct her work entirely in Spanish. She had to interview lots of clients, potential clients for the consulting company. That all had to be in Spanish. Especially difficult is trying to do a Spanish language interview over the telephone. I know that from experience. Bridget is really pretty open about discussing the fact that there were those kinds of stresses, but still overall the experience was really very positive for her. Well, we have student consultants like these that work on projects. They've actually worked on hundreds of projects inside the United States. This is through our program at Carnegie Mellon University. And then outside the United States, we have, there we go. Outside the United States, we've so far had 60 students working on 32 projects in 11 developing nations. And when you look at the map, you can see pins in the map, all the places that we've worked, all the way from Ghana in the west to Chile in the east and lots of places in Asia and in the Pacific Island nations. Now this year, this summer, we'll be working in some of these same places, and we're also adding a couple of new projects, one in Rwanda in Eastern Africa. It's just a little nation there in Eastern Africa. It's been in the news in years past, but actually is quite stable now, and they're trying to build an economy based on technology. And we're also, for the very first time, doing a project here in Alaska, in Bush, Alaska. We'll be working for the Bering Strait School District up in Unalakleet. Well, what happened to Bridget? After she completed her project and graduated from the university, she decided to actually redirect her career, as I mentioned earlier, into this kind of work. And so she landed a job working on a World Heritage project, and then later on, a job with a design consulting firm, which is oriented completely to doing these kinds of projects that have social impact. Here's what Bridget says about that.
I think one of the main reasons I was accepted to that is because I could point back to this thing I did in Chile and say, look, I've done on-site consulting for a very tight timeline with this very small team, much smaller team, meeting new people, doing market research on-site and just hitting the ground running. I can do that. I've done it before, see? And the two of those together help me set me up for future things. I'm now working at a user-centered design consulting firm that's working on social projects with social impact called Anthrotech. And I think doing the work in Chile and doing the project at the World Heritage that the work at Chile helped me get this job. So
that's Bridget's story, but Adrien's story is a little different. Okay, there we go. So Adrien did continue with her career path that she had originally planned on, but still the experience in Ghana was so meaningful to her that she kept an interest in Ghana, and then she was able to continue to help Ghana, especially with the water project, on a part-time basis.
Not all my time in Ghana was spent just doing work. I really had a good time. I enjoyed the people. My expectations of Africa, really, I didn't have any. But when I got there, I was just surprisingly delighted. So my experience there was really a good one. The experience has had an impact on me to continue, seeking out those sort of opportunities to help with developing nation-related projects. Right now, I'm doing a paper related to technology and how it can be used to provide water consistently in such areas.
Now, looking back on the whole experience, here's how Bridget reflects.
It was one of the most painful, lonely, miserable, rewarding, memorable, and wonderful parts of college for me. And I learned more in those 10 weeks than I think I did in any other semester, or more than a semester in college. I would highly recommend it to anybody who gets a chance to go.
So now I think you can probably see what I mean when I say these young professionals will change the world. These young professionals will change the world. And that's why I'm working to create a whole network of universities that run these kinds of consulting programs that students can get involved in, including some work here at UAA, where we worked last fall with UAA engineering students on a renewable energy project, livable communities. And this term, some engineering students are doing an assessment in a small village in Guatemala. So UAA is also involved in this. That's why I'm working on this network of universities, and I think if you'll help me spread the word on this, you can be sure that these young professionals will change the world. Thank you very much.